Stop for a moment. Before you scroll away, before you make a decision, and before you let your mind create the worst possible story. Listen carefully. Because something happened last night. Something unexpected. Something that may have changed the way your soulmate sees their own life. Someone saw them. Someone noticed them. Someone caught them standing with another person. And now there is one question that refuses to leave your mind. Who were they with? But there is an even bigger question. Why did they hide it from you? Maybe you have already felt something strange. Maybe their energy has changed. Maybe their messages have become different. Maybe they suddenly became quiet. Maybe they started taking longer to reply. Maybe they look at their phone and quickly put it away. Maybe they seem distracted when you talk to them. And perhaps you have been asking yourself, is something happening behind my back? Is there another person? Why are they acting differently? Why don't they simply tell me the truth? If you have been feeling confused, take a breath. Do not allow fear to answer a question that only truth can answer. Because what happened last night may not be what it looks like. Sometimes one moment can look completely different when you finally learn the story behind it. You may see two people together. But you may not know why they were together. You may see a conversation. But you may not know what was being said. You may see your soulmate with someone from their past. But you may not know whether they were returning to that person. Or finally saying goodbye. And that difference changes everything. So listen carefully. Because this story is not only about your soulmate. It is about choices. It is about the past. It is about fear. It is about hidden feelings. It is about truth. And for those who believe in God, it is also about trusting that God sees what human eyes cannot see. You may not know what happened last night. But God knows. You may not know what your soulmate was thinking. But God knows. You may not know what was said when you were not there. But God knows every word. You see one moment. God sees the whole story. And sometimes, the whole story is very different from the first thing you see. Imagine your soulmate's night. Everything seems normal. They are going about their routine. They may be thinking about work. They may be thinking about family. They may be thinking about you. Then suddenly, someone appears. Someone they did not expect to see. Someone from another chapter of their life. Someone they thought was already behind them. For a moment, your soulmate may not know what to say. They look at this person. The other person looks back. There is silence. A lot of history can exist inside one silent moment. Maybe this person was once an important part of their life. Maybe they once shared memories. Maybe there was a relationship. Maybe there were promises. Maybe there was pain. Maybe there was a breakup that never received proper closure. But life continued. And eventually, your soulmate met you. You became important. Your messages started mattering. Your voice started mattering. Your presence started mattering. And slowly, you became part of their future. That is why meeting someone from the past can be confusing. Not because the past is always wanted. But because memories do not disappear just because a relationship ends. People remember. They remember places. They remember conversations. They remember good moments. They remember bad moments. But remembering something does not mean wanting it again. That is an important difference. Maybe the person from the past looked at your soulmate and said, "Can we talk?" Your soulmate may have wanted to leave. But perhaps they stayed. Why? Maybe they wanted answers. Maybe they wanted closure. Maybe they wanted to finally say something that should have been said a long time ago. Maybe they wanted to make sure that an old door was completely closed. And perhaps the conversation started. The other person may have asked, "Do you still think about me?" Your soulmate may have stayed quiet. Because the answer was complicated. Of course they remember. You cannot erase a part of your life. But remembering is not returning. And maybe your soulmate finally said, "I have moved on." The other person may have looked shocked. Because of them? And maybe your soulmate did not answer immediately. But inside their heart, your face appeared. Your voice. Your memories. Your smile. The moments you shared. The things you did for them. The way you cared. The way you stayed when they were difficult. And maybe they realized something. They did not want to return to the past. They wanted to understand the future. And their future was connected to you. Maybe they said, "Yes. There is someone in my life." The other person may have asked, "Do they know about me?" And that question may have created silence. Because perhaps you did not know. Perhaps your soulmate never told you about this person. And now we reach the part that may hurt. Why? Why would they hide it? There are many possible reasons. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they thought you would misunderstand. Maybe they thought telling you would create unnecessary drama. Maybe they did not know how to explain why someone from their past suddenly appeared. Maybe they were ashamed that they had not completely closed that chapter. Or maybe they simply wanted to protect what they have with you. But there is a problem. When people try to protect a relationship through silence, sometimes the silence hurts more than the truth. Your soulmate may have thought, "I will tell them later." Then later became tomorrow. Tomorrow became another day. And eventually, the secret became bigger than the original meeting. That is how confusion grows. One small secret becomes a large question. One unanswered question becomes suspicion. Suspicion becomes fear. Fear becomes distance. And distance can damage a relationship. Maybe your soulmate is beginning to understand that now. Maybe God is allowing this situation to teach them something. Honesty cannot always be comfortable. Sometimes honesty is difficult. Sometimes you have to admit, "I was afraid. I made a mistake. I should have told you. I did not know how to explain it." Those words can be hard. But they can also open a door. A door to healing. A door to trust. A door to a better relationship. And perhaps that is what your soulmate needs. Not another secret. Not another excuse. Not another complicated story. Truth. Maybe the person from the past tried to pull your soulmate back. Maybe they reminded them of old memories. Maybe they said, "Remember what we had. Remember how happy we were. Remember everything we promised." But your soulmate may have realized something. The past can be remembered without being repeated. They can appreciate what once existed, without wanting it again. They can forgive someone, without loving them again. They can say goodbye, without being cruel. And maybe your soulmate finally said, "That part of my life is over." The other person may have asked, "Are you sure?" And maybe your soulmate looked at them and said, "I am." Those 3 words can be powerful. Because sometimes people spend years standing between the past and the future. They are not fully moving backward. They are not fully moving forward. They are simply stuck. Maybe your soulmate was stuck. Maybe they were afraid to close one door because they were afraid of what would happen after closing it. But last night, the door may have finally closed. And maybe God allowed that moment because your soulmate needed clarity. Not every person who returns is meant to stay. Sometimes people return to show you why you left. Sometimes an old relationship comes back just long enough for you to understand how much you have changed. Sometimes the past comes knocking. And you realize you no longer live there. Maybe that happened to your soulmate. The person standing in front of them may have been familiar. But familiar does not always mean right. Comfortable does not always mean healthy. History does not always mean destiny. And perhaps your soulmate understood that. Maybe they thought about you. Maybe they thought, if I go back, I will lose them. And that thought frightened them. Because maybe they have already realized how important you are. Maybe they have been hiding that too. Not from you only. From themselves. Sometimes a person can love someone deeply. And still be afraid to admit it. Why? Because love creates vulnerability. When you truly care about someone, they gain the ability to hurt you. They can reject you. They can leave. They can choose someone else. They can change their mind. And that can be terrifying. Maybe your soulmate has been protecting themselves from that fear. Maybe they act distant because they care too much. Maybe they hide feelings because they don't know whether you feel the same way. Maybe they have been waiting for you to make the first move. And perhaps last night made them realize that waiting forever is not an option. Because someone from the past appeared. And suddenly your soulmate had to make a choice. The past. Or the future. Fear. Or courage. Silence. Or truth. Maybe they chose courage. Maybe they chose the future. Maybe they chose you. But there is another part of this story. Someone else may have seen them. Maybe a friend. Maybe someone who knows both of you. Maybe someone who saw the meeting from a distance. They may have thought, what are they doing together? And that person may have started making assumptions. But assumptions are dangerous. Because the person watching did not hear the conversation. They did not hear what your soulmate said. They did not hear what the other person said. They did not know the history. They only saw the picture. And one picture can never tell the entire story. Maybe they saw your soulmate sitting with someone. But they did not see your soulmate crying afterward. Maybe they saw them talking. But they did not hear your soulmate say, I don't want to go back. Maybe they saw the beginning. But they didn't see the ending. And that is why you should not let someone else's observation become your entire reality. If something concerns you, ask. If something hurts you, say it. If something feels wrong, seek clarity. Do not build an entire future around a rumor. Because your peace is too valuable for that. Now imagine what happened after the meeting. Your soulmate walks away. They may look calm. But inside, their heart is racing. They may think about the conversation again and again. They may remember things they thought they had forgotten. Then they think about you. They take out their phone. Your name is there. Maybe they open your chat. They type. Are you awake? Delete. They type. Can we talk? Delete. They type. I need to tell you something. Delete. Why? Because they are afraid. They know you may ask. Who were you with? And they do not know how you will react. They may be thinking, what if they think I betrayed them? What if they don't believe me? What if they leave? That last thought may be the strongest. What if you leave? Maybe that is the fear they have been avoiding. Because perhaps they finally understand that you are not guaranteed to stay forever. Maybe they took your presence for granted. Maybe they assumed you would always be there. But now, they are beginning to understand your value. Sometimes people realize your value when your energy changes. When you stop chasing. When you stop explaining. When you stop begging for attention. When you become quiet. When you begin choosing your own peace. That can make someone think. Your soulmate may be thinking, have I waited too long? Did I hurt them too much? Are they moving on? Did I lose my chance? Maybe those thoughts have been keeping them awake. And maybe God is using that discomfort to push them toward honesty. Because sometimes people do not change when everything is comfortable. They change when they finally understand the consequences of their choices. Maybe last night was that moment. The other person may have asked your soulmate, do you really love them? And perhaps your soulmate could not answer immediately. Not because they did not know, but because saying it aloud made it real. Maybe they finally said, yes. The other person may have looked hurt. Maybe they asked, more than you loved me? And your soulmate may have said, it's different. Not better. Not worse. Different. Because what they had in the past belonged to the past. What they feel now belongs to the present. And perhaps they finally understood that. Maybe the other person tried one final time. Give me another chance. Your soulmate may have looked at them. And for the first time, there was no confusion. No. One word. No. That may have been the real moment. Not the meeting. Not the conversation. Not the secret. The choice. The boundary. The decision to close the old door. And maybe that is why the night mattered. Because your soulmate was forced to choose. And perhaps they chose not to return. But then comes the question. Why didn't they tell you? Maybe because they know they handled it badly. Maybe they know they should have told you. Maybe they are ashamed. Maybe they fear your reaction. Maybe they want to tell you face to face. Maybe they don't want to send an important truth through a text. Or maybe they are still gathering courage. Whatever the reason. If they truly care about you, they need to understand one thing. You deserve honesty. You should not have to discover important things through other people. You should not have to decode behavior. You should not have to wonder whether you are being respected. And perhaps your soulmate is learning that now. Maybe God is teaching them. If you want something real, you must become honest enough to protect it. Because God is not only interested in what people say. Faith is also about how people live. How they treat others. How they handle temptation. How they respond when nobody is watching. How they take responsibility when they make mistakes. Maybe last night gave your soulmate a chance to show who they really are. And maybe they chose wisely. But remember, you do not have to decide that from a story. You should watch their actions. If they reach out, listen. If they explain, ask questions. If they apologize, watch what happens afterward. Because an apology without change is only a sentence. Real change is visible. Maybe they become more open. Maybe they stop hiding their phone. Maybe they communicate more clearly. Maybe they tell you where they stand. Maybe they stop allowing old relationships to interfere. Maybe they finally say, I want to build something real with you. And then, they actually build it. That is what matters. Not dramatic words. Not emotional promises. Actions. Consistency. Respect. Now let's talk about God. If you believe that God can guide your life, remember this. You do not have to force what God has not asked you to force. You do not have to chase someone endlessly. You do not have to beg someone to choose you. You do not have to lose yourself trying to keep another person. Pray for wisdom. Pray for truth. Pray for peace. Pray that what is hidden becomes clear. And then let God work through reality. Maybe the answer will be your soulmate coming closer. Maybe the answer will be your soulmate changing. Maybe the answer will be a conversation. Maybe the answer will be an ending. But whatever happens, you can ask God to help you accept the truth. Sometimes we pray, God, please give me this person. But perhaps a stronger prayer is, God, give me what is truly good for me. There is a difference. Because sometimes what we want is not what we need. Sometimes we want someone who is not ready. Sometimes we want someone who keeps hurting us. Sometimes we want a relationship that has already lost its foundation. And sometimes we want someone who actually has the potential to grow with us. Only time and actions can reveal which one it is. So do not force the answer. Let it become clear. Maybe your soulmate is already thinking about reaching out. Maybe they are asking God for courage. Maybe they are saying, God, please help me fix what I damaged. Maybe they are remembering your face. Maybe they are remembering your kindness. Maybe they are remembering the last time you were together. And maybe they are realizing, I don't want to lose this person. That realization can change everything. Because once someone truly understands what they could lose, they may stop taking it for granted. Maybe your soulmate has been thinking about you more than they admit. Maybe they look at your profile. Maybe they wonder what you are doing. Maybe they wonder whether you are talking to someone else. Maybe they wonder whether you still care. But again, thoughts are not enough. If they want you, they must communicate. If they love you, they must show respect. If they want a future, they must build trust. And perhaps they are finally ready. Now imagine the next conversation. Your phone rings. You see their name. For a second, you don't know whether to answer. Your heart starts beating faster. You answer. There is silence. Then they say, can we talk? You ask. About what? They take a breath. I need to explain what happened last night. This is the moment you have been waiting for. But do not let emotion control the entire conversation. Listen first. Maybe they say, I ran into someone from my past. Maybe they say, they asked to talk. Maybe they say, I didn't plan it. Maybe they say, I should have told you. And then perhaps they explain. They tell you what was said. They tell you what happened. They tell you why they stayed. They tell you why they left. And perhaps the most important sentence comes at the end. I chose not to go back. Then they say, I chose you. That sentence may make you emotional. But remember, you don't need to immediately say, everything is okay. You can say, I need time to process this. That is okay. You can love someone and still need time. You can forgive and still rebuild trust slowly. You can believe their explanation and still ask for better communication in the future. That is not being difficult. That is respecting yourself. Maybe your soulmate understands. Maybe they say, I know. I understand. I should have told you. I will do better. Now comes the important part. Do they actually do better? This is where the future will reveal itself. Maybe the next week feels different. They communicate. They check on you. They stop hiding. They become more open. They make an effort. They show consistency. And slowly, trust begins to return. Maybe you realize that last night was not the beginning of betrayal. It was the end of an old chapter. But there is also another possibility. Maybe your soulmate admits that the past still has a hold on them. Maybe they say they are confused. Maybe they are not ready. If that happens, you deserve honesty too. You do not need to fight for someone who is unsure. You do not need to compete with another person. You do not need to prove that you are worthy. You already are. Let them make their choice. And let yourself make yours. Because love without freedom is not healthy love. You cannot force someone to choose you. And someone who truly chooses you should not need to be forced. That is why this story is not simply your soulmate was caught with someone. The deeper message is your soulmate is being forced to face a choice. And so are you. They must choose honesty. You must choose self-respect. They must choose whether they are ready. You must choose whether their actions are enough. They must decide what they want. You must decide what you will accept. And perhaps both of you are entering a new chapter. A chapter where things cannot continue the same way. Maybe the old version of your relationship is ending. Not necessarily the relationship itself, but the old patterns. The silence. The guessing. The fear. The avoidance. The hidden emotions. Maybe all of that needs to end. And maybe something healthier can begin. Something more honest. Something more peaceful. Something with better communication. Something where both people know where they stand. If God is part of your relationship, bring Him into that process. Pray together if that feels right. Ask for wisdom. Ask for patience. Ask for forgiveness. Ask for the strength to speak honestly. Because relationships are not always easy. Two people can love each other and still misunderstand each other. Two people can care deeply and still hurt each other. Two people can make mistakes. But when both people are willing to grow, something beautiful can happen. Healing. Understanding. Maturity. Peace. Maybe your soulmate is learning that right now. Maybe they finally understand that love is not about avoiding difficult conversations. Love is about having them. Maybe they are realizing, I cannot hide every uncomfortable thing. I cannot expect them to trust me if I don't communicate. I cannot keep one foot in the past and one in the future. I have to choose. And perhaps they have chosen. But again, let their actions speak. Now think about the person from last night. Maybe they were not evil. Maybe they were simply part of your soulmate's history. Maybe they wanted closure too. Maybe they needed to hear, we are done. Maybe they cried. Maybe your soulmate felt guilty. Maybe they apologized. But eventually, they walked away. And your soulmate walked in another direction. That direction may have been toward you. Maybe they went home. Maybe they looked at your pictures. Maybe they thought, I wish they were here. Maybe they imagined telling you everything. Maybe they imagined holding your hand. Maybe they imagined what life could look like if both of you stopped being afraid. And perhaps that thought gave them courage. Maybe they finally understood. I don't need to keep running. So what happens next? Maybe a message. Maybe a call. Maybe an unexpected conversation. Maybe an apology. Maybe a confession. Maybe simply a change in behavior. Whatever it is, Don't force it. Let it unfold. Because the more you chase, the less clearly you can see. Sometimes stepping back gives you the clearest answer. When you stop chasing someone, you discover whether they come toward you. When you stop explaining yourself, you discover whether they actually want to understand. When you stop begging for attention, you discover whether they are willing to give it freely. When you stop accepting confusion, you discover whether they are capable of clarity. And maybe that is what you need to do now. Not as a game. Not to manipulate them. But to protect your peace. Stay calm. Live your life. Pray. Focus on yourself. And let your soulmate show you what they really want. Because if they truly want you, they will not be comfortable with losing you. They will eventually act. They will eventually speak. They will eventually make a choice. And perhaps that choice is already forming inside them. Maybe last night's conversation was the final push. Maybe they realized, I can't lose them because of my fear. Maybe they finally understand that hiding something does not protect love. Honesty does. Maybe they are preparing to tell you everything. And perhaps when they do, you will finally understand why they were so distant. Why they were quiet. Why they seemed distracted. Why they were acting differently. Because they were carrying something they did not know how to explain. But once the truth comes out, the weight becomes lighter. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. Truth gives you something to work with. Lies give you nothing but confusion. So let truth come. And when it does, do not be afraid. If the truth is good, you will know. If the truth is painful, you will still survive. If the truth shows that they are sincere, you can decide whether to rebuild. If the truth shows that they are not ready, you can protect yourself. Either way, you gain clarity. And clarity is a gift. Now, there is one more possibility. What if the person they were with was not from their past at all? What if it was someone who was trying to help them? Maybe a friend. Maybe someone they trust. Maybe someone who knows about your relationship. Maybe your soulmate was asking them for advice. Maybe they were saying, I don't know how to approach them. I don't know whether they still love me. I don't know whether they will forgive me. And perhaps that friend told them, if you care about them, stop hiding. Go talk to them. Tell them the truth. Stop being afraid. Maybe that was the entire meeting. Maybe your soulmate was not choosing someone else. Maybe they were trying to figure out how to choose you properly. And that is another reason why appearances can be misleading. You cannot know the entire story from a distance. Only the people inside the conversation know. And God knows even more. So if you are worried, pray. If you are angry, wait before reacting. If you are hurt, express it honestly. If you are confused, ask questions. And if you are afraid, remember that fear is not proof. Your mind may create 1,000 possibilities, but only one of them is true. So don't punish yourself for something you do not know. Don't spend the night imagining things that may never have happened. Don't compare yourself to someone you don't even know. Don't ask, what does that person have that I don't? Maybe nothing. Maybe they are simply part of the past. And you are part of the future. But again, let actions prove it. Your worth is not determined by competition. You don't need to be better than another person. You simply need to be treated with respect. If someone chooses you, they should choose you because of who you are. Not because you defeated someone else. Not because someone else left. Not because you begged. Because they genuinely want you. That is real choice. And maybe your soulmate is reaching that point. Maybe they are realizing that love is not a competition. It is a decision. A decision to show up. A decision to communicate. A decision to stay loyal. A decision to protect the relationship. A decision to stop repeating old mistakes. Maybe last night forced them to make that decision. And perhaps God used a difficult moment to reveal what was hidden inside their heart. Sometimes the answer doesn't come through a miracle. Sometimes it comes through a person's choices. Sometimes God gives you wisdom by allowing you to see someone's character. And maybe you are about to see your soulmate's character clearly. Watch what they do. If they come forward with honesty, that matters. If they take responsibility, that matters. If they blame everyone else, that matters too. If they make excuses, pay attention. If they change, notice it. If they repeat the same behavior, believe the pattern. Because you don't have to guess forever. People reveal themselves. And when they do, you will know how to respond. Maybe your soulmate is ready to become a better partner. Maybe they are ready to leave old habits behind. Maybe they are ready to communicate. Maybe they are ready to stop being afraid. Maybe they are ready to tell you, "I love you." But don't let that sentence be the end of the conversation. Let it be the beginning. Ask, "What does love mean to you?" Maybe they answer, "Being honest. Being consistent. Respecting you. Choosing you. Protecting what we have." That is what you want to hear. Because feelings can change. But character is built through choices. And perhaps your soulmate is finally building that character. Maybe God is working on them in ways you cannot see. Maybe they are learning patience. Maybe they are learning humility. Maybe they are learning responsibility. Maybe they are learning that love is not only about what they feel. It is about how their behavior affects another person. And maybe they are finally becoming ready. But don't wait endlessly for potential. Wait for progress. There is a difference. Potential is what someone could become. Progress is what they are actually becoming. Look for progress. And if you see it, you can decide what comes next. Maybe you give them another chance. Maybe you rebuild slowly. Maybe you start again. But this time, with stronger boundaries. More honesty. More communication. More faith. More peace. And less fear. Imagine what that could look like. No more wondering who they are talking to. No more hiding. No more mysterious behavior. No more guessing. Instead, you both communicate. You both explain. You both listen. You both respect each other's feelings. And when problems happen, you talk about them. That is a much healthier relationship. Maybe last night can become the moment that pushed you both toward that. Maybe what looked like a disaster becomes a lesson. Maybe what looked like betrayal becomes an opportunity for honesty. Maybe what looked like the end becomes a new beginning. But only if both people choose to grow. One person cannot build a healthy relationship alone. You cannot do all the work. Your soulmate must participate. They must choose. They must act. They must communicate. And perhaps they are finally ready. Now imagine God looking at the entire situation. You are worried about one night. But God sees your entire life. You are worried about one person. God sees every person you will meet. You are worried about one relationship. God sees every chapter ahead. You are worried about one unanswered question. God already knows the answer. That does not mean you should ignore reality. Faith does not mean pretending everything is fine. Faith means you can face reality without believing that reality is the end of your story. If the relationship is meant to heal, it can heal. If it needs to end, you can survive. If the person comes back, you can evaluate their actions. If they do not, you can still move forward. Your future is not destroyed by one night. Your worth is not destroyed by someone else's choices. Your peace does not have to depend on another person's behavior. And maybe that is the most important message here. Do not lose yourself while trying to understand someone else. Do not spend every minute checking whether they have replied. Do not stop living because you are waiting for an explanation. Keep going. Keep growing. Keep praying. Keep becoming the person you are meant to be. And if your soulmate comes toward you, meet them with wisdom, not desperation. If they apologize, listen. If they ask for another chance, look at their actions. If they say they have changed, give time the opportunity to prove it. Because real change does not need to be announced every day. You can see it. It becomes natural. And perhaps that is what is about to happen. Maybe the person you have been waiting for is finally becoming more honest. Maybe they are finally understanding the consequences of losing you. Maybe they are finally learning what real commitment means. Maybe last night was their wake-up call. Maybe they went to sleep with one thought: I cannot keep doing this. And maybe they woke up with another: I need to tell them the truth. If that happens, you will have your answer. Not from a prediction. Not from a rumor. From them. And perhaps that is the answer you truly need. Now, let's imagine the final moment. Your soulmate is standing in front of you. No phone. No distractions. No other people. Just you and them. They look at you. They take a deep breath. And they finally speak. I need to tell you something. You stay quiet. They continue. Last night I saw someone from my past. Your heart beats faster. They continue. They wanted another chance. You listen. I was scared to tell you. They look down. I thought you would misunderstand. Then they look back at you. But something happened. You ask, what? And they say, I realized I don't want to go backward. A pause. I realized what I could lose. Another pause. And I don't want to lose you. Maybe that is the conversation you have been waiting for. But then comes the most important sentence. I should have told you. That sentence matters. Because they are taking responsibility. They are not blaming you. They are not blaming the other person. They are not making excuses. They are saying, I made a mistake. And perhaps they continue. I want to earn your trust again. Now. That is where healing can begin. Not because everything is suddenly perfect. But because honesty finally entered the room. Maybe you cry. Maybe they cry. Maybe neither of you knows what to say. But something has changed. The secret is gone. The guessing is over. Now there is truth. And truth gives both of you a choice. Rebuild. Or walk away. Maybe you choose to rebuild. Slowly. Carefully. With boundaries. With communication. With God at the center of your faith. Or maybe you realize that too much has happened. And you choose peace. Either decision can be strong. Because the goal is not simply to keep a relationship. The goal is to build a healthy life. And sometimes that means staying. Sometimes that means leaving. Wisdom tells you which one. So don't decide from fear. decide from truth. And maybe, when everything is finally clear, you will look back at last night differently. You will realize, I thought I was losing them. But maybe you were not. Maybe they were finally losing the past. Maybe you thought someone else was entering their life. But maybe someone else was finally leaving it. Maybe you thought the relationship was breaking. But maybe the old version of the relationship was breaking. So something stronger could be built. Maybe you thought God was silent. But perhaps God was teaching you patience. Perhaps God was teaching your soulmate honesty. Perhaps God was teaching both of you wisdom. And perhaps the lesson will remain long after this night is forgotten. So if you are listening right now, remember these words. Do not assume. Do not chase. Do not panic. Do not compare yourself. Do not destroy your peace over information you do not have. Wait for truth. Ask for truth. And when truth comes, accept it. If your soulmate is sincere, let them show it. If they are not, let yourself move forward. Either way, you will not lose yourself. And that matters. Because you were never meant to live in permanent confusion. You deserve clarity. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve someone who can stand beside you without making you question where you stand. Maybe that person is your soulmate. Maybe they are becoming ready. Maybe they are learning. Maybe last night was the moment everything changed. But let them prove it. And if you believe in God, place the situation in His hands. Say, God, I do not know what happened. I do not know what they are thinking. I do not know what tomorrow will bring. But I trust you with the truth. If this relationship is good for me, help it become healthier. If it needs healing, give us wisdom. If it needs to end, give me strength. If this person is meant to stay, let their actions prove it. And if they are not, protect me from staying where I should not. Then let go. That prayer is not weakness. It is surrender. You are saying, I will not control what I cannot control. And sometimes that is when peace begins. Maybe tonight you will sleep better. Maybe tomorrow you will receive a message. Maybe you will finally have the conversation. Maybe you will learn who that person was. Maybe you will understand why your soulmate hid the meeting. And maybe you will realize that your fear created a story much worse than reality. Or maybe you will discover something painful. But if the truth is painful, you can still stand. You can still heal. You can still grow. You can still love again. You can still trust God. Your life is bigger than one relationship. Your future is bigger than one person. Your worth is bigger than someone else's decision. Remember that. And if your soulmate truly loves you, they will understand your need for truth. They won't ask you to accept endless confusion. They won't expect you to ignore your feelings. They will listen. They will explain. They will change. They will show up. That is what you should watch for. Not one emotional speech. Not one dramatic night. Not one promise. A pattern. Consistency. That is where the truth lives. So perhaps the title sounded frightening. Your soulmate was caught last night. But maybe the deeper story is different. Maybe they were caught facing their past. Maybe they were caught making a decision. Maybe they were caught finally realizing what they could lose. Maybe they were caught saying goodbye. Maybe they were caught admitting that they still care about you. Maybe they were caught praying for another chance. And maybe they were caught standing at the door between two lives. One life behind them. One life ahead. And they had to choose. Perhaps they finally chose forward. Perhaps they finally chose honesty. Perhaps they finally chose you. But don't take my words as proof. Let life show you. Let their actions show you. Let truth show you. And let God guide you. Because your heart deserves something real. Not fantasy. Not fear. Not endless guessing. Real love. Real honesty. Real effort. Real peace. And maybe that is exactly what is coming next. A conversation. A truth. A decision. A new chapter. So if your soulmate reaches out, do not run away immediately. Listen. If they tell you the truth, don't interrupt before they finish. If they admit a mistake, decide whether their actions show genuine regret. If they ask for another chance, ask yourself whether trust can realistically be rebuilt. And if they say they want you, ask them to show you. Because love is not just, I want you. Love is, I will respect you. I will be honest with you. I will communicate with you. I will protect what we build. I will take responsibility. I will choose you consistently. That is the kind of love that can survive difficult nights. And maybe your soulmate is finally learning that. Maybe last night was not the end. Maybe it was the beginning of maturity. Maybe it was the moment they finally understood that you cannot build a future while constantly looking backward. The past has its place, but it should not control the future. And maybe they are finally ready to leave it there, behind them. So don't spend another night imagining the worst. Instead, pray, breathe, stay calm, and let the truth come. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to force it. You don't have to investigate every detail. The truth will reveal itself through communication and actions. And when it does, you will be ready. Because you are not the same person you were before. You are stronger. You are wiser. You understand your value. And you understand that love should not require you to lose yourself. Maybe your soulmate is learning that too. Maybe both of you are growing. Maybe both of you are being prepared for a healthier connection. Or maybe God is preparing you for a different path. Whatever happens, trust that clarity is better than confusion. Truth is better than fantasy. Peace is better than obsession. And self-respect is better than begging. So, who were they with? Maybe someone from the past. Maybe someone who wanted them back. Maybe someone who needed closure. Maybe someone they were asking for advice. Maybe someone completely innocent. You will know when the truth comes. And why did they hide it? Maybe fear. Maybe confusion. Maybe shame. Maybe protection. Maybe poor communication. Or perhaps something more serious. Again, you do not have to guess. Ask. Listen. Observe. And decide. Because the real question is not only, who were they with? It is, what did they choose when that person stood in front of them? Did they choose the past? Or did they choose the future? Did they choose secrecy? Or did they choose honesty? Did they choose confusion? Or did they choose clarity? And most importantly, did they choose a life that includes you? That is the answer that matters. Maybe last night forced them to finally understand it. Maybe they looked at the past and said, no. Maybe they looked toward the future and said, yes. Maybe they finally understood that what they have with you is worth protecting. And if that is true, let them protect it through action. Let them communicate. Let them be honest. Let them become consistent. Let them earn your trust. Because you deserve nothing less. And if they do that, maybe this difficult moment will eventually become a story you tell differently. You will say, I once thought that night would destroy everything. But it forced us to finally tell the truth. It forced us to grow. It forced us to become honest. It forced us to choose. And maybe that choice brought you closer. Maybe it became the beginning of something stronger. Something calmer. Something more mature. Something built on faith and truth. But whatever happens, remember this final message. Do not be afraid of the truth. The truth may change your plans. But lies can destroy your peace. The truth may hurt for a moment. But confusion can hurt for months. The truth may close one door. But it can also open another. So ask God for courage. Ask for wisdom. Ask for peace. And then allow reality to speak. Maybe your soulmate will come forward. Maybe they will explain everything. Maybe they will apologize. Maybe they will tell you they were with someone from their past. Maybe they will tell you that person wanted another chance. Maybe they will tell you that they said no. Maybe they will tell you that they realized they want you. Maybe they will tell you they were afraid to say it. And maybe you will finally understand. Not because someone predicted it, but because they told you. And because their actions confirmed it. That is the only kind of answer worth trusting. So tonight, don't let your mind punish you. Don't imagine conversations you never heard. Don't compare yourself to someone from the past. Don't question your worth. Instead, remember who you are. You are worthy of honest love. You are worthy of respect. You are worthy of communication. You are worthy of peace. And if someone wants to be part of your life, they need to understand that. Maybe your soulmate is finally understanding it. Maybe last night was the wake-up call. Maybe they are finally ready to stop hiding. Maybe they are finally ready to speak. Maybe they are finally ready to choose. And maybe the choice is you. But let them show you. Let tomorrow reveal what tonight cannot. Let their actions speak louder than your fears. And let God guide your heart through whatever comes next. Because sometimes, what looks like a painful ending is actually a turning point. Sometimes, what looks like betrayal is actually a misunderstanding waiting for truth. Sometimes, what looks like a reunion with the past is actually a final goodbye. Sometimes, the person standing beside your soulmate is not the person they want. They are simply the person who reminded them of who they used to be. And perhaps after seeing that old version of themselves, your soulmate realized they don't want to be that person anymore. They want to grow. They want peace. They want honesty. They want something real. And maybe they want you. So when the next chapter begins, do not carry the fear of last night into every tomorrow. If they prove themselves, allow trust to grow slowly. If they don't, allow yourself to walk away. Either way, keep your dignity. Keep your faith. Keep your peace. Because no relationship is worth losing yourself. And no person should have the power to make you forget your own value. Maybe God brought this situation into the light because something needed to change. Maybe it was your soulmate's behavior. Maybe it was your expectations. Maybe it was your communication. Maybe it was your fear. Maybe it was all of it. But change can be good. Sometimes a difficult conversation saves a relationship. Sometimes honesty repairs what silence damaged. Sometimes one painful truth creates more peace than 1,000 beautiful lies. And maybe that is what is waiting for you. Truth. Clarity. Peace. So don't chase the answer. Let it come. Don't force the person. Let them choose. Don't beg for love. Let them show it. Don't allow fear to become your guide. Let wisdom guide you. And if you believe in God, trust Him enough to let the right truth remain and the wrong things leave. Maybe your soulmate is part of your future. Maybe they are learning how to love you properly. Maybe last night was the moment they realized they could lose you. Maybe it was the moment they finally decided to stop running. Maybe it was the moment they finally closed the past. And maybe the next time they come to you, they won't come with excuses. They will come with honesty. They will say, "I am sorry. I was afraid. I should have told you. I don't want to lose you. I want to do this the right way." And then they will prove it. Not with one message. Not with one night. But with time. With effort. With consistency. With respect. That is when you will know. Until then, protect your heart. But don't close it because of fear. Stay open to truth. Stay open to wisdom. Stay open to whatever God has planned for your life. And remember, you don't have to know everything tonight. You only need to know that you will be okay. If your soulmate returns, you will decide wisely. If they explain, you will listen. If they apologize, you will decide whether to forgive. If they change, you will see it. If they don't, you will move forward. Either way, you will not be lost. Because your identity is bigger than your relationship. Your future is bigger than this moment. Your life is bigger than this mystery. And God is bigger than your fear. So breathe. The night is over. The truth is still unfolding. And tomorrow may bring the answer. Maybe a message. Maybe a call. Maybe a conversation. Maybe a realization. Maybe closure. Maybe a new beginning. Whatever comes, meet it with wisdom. And if your soulmate truly chooses you, make sure they choose you openly. Not secretly. Not halfway. Not only when they are lonely. But consistently. Because you deserve a love that says, "I choose you." And then lives like it. That is the real answer. Not who they were standing beside last night. But who they stand beside tomorrow. Not who they were talking to. But who they are willing to build with. Not what they say when they are afraid. But what they do when they have a choice. And maybe last night gave your soulmate that choice. Maybe they looked at the past. Then they looked toward the future. And they finally understood. The past is finished. The future is waiting. And maybe you are part of that future. If so, let them come forward. Let them speak. Let them prove it. And if God is guiding this story, trust Him with the next chapter. Because sometimes you don't understand why something happened until much later. Maybe months from now, you will look back at this night and realize that was the night everything changed. The night the truth came out. The night the past finally ended. The night your soulmate stopped hiding. The night you learned to trust yourself. The night you learned to trust God. The night you stopped accepting confusion. The night both of you finally understood what real love requires. And perhaps that is why this moment feels so powerful. Because it is not only about what happened last night. It is about what happens next. So remember. Don't assume. Don't panic. Don't chase. Don't compare. Don't lose your peace. Ask for truth. Watch actions. Protect your heart. And let God guide your steps. Because the person your soulmate was with last night may have been part of their past. But only their actions will tell you whether that person belongs in their future. And perhaps they don't. Perhaps your soulmate finally closed that door. Perhaps they finally chose you. Perhaps they finally realized your value. Perhaps they finally understood that love requires courage. And perhaps their next message will tell you everything. Until then, stay calm. Stay strong. Stay prayerful. And remember one final thing. You do not have to chase what is truly meant to meet you with honesty. If your soulmate wants to explain, they will find a way. If they want to repair, they will make an effort. If they want to rebuild, they will become consistent. And if they truly want a future with you, they will stop making you question whether you have one. So let the truth come. Let the actions speak. Let God guide. And when the answer finally arrives, choose what gives you peace. Because love is beautiful. But healthy love is even more beautiful. Love with honesty. Love with respect. Love with patience. Love with communication. Love with boundaries. Love with faith. And if two people can build that together, then even a difficult night can become the beginning of a beautiful new chapter. Maybe that is what is waiting for you. Maybe last night was not the night you lost your soulmate. Maybe it was the night your soulmate finally realized they could lose you. Maybe it was not the night another person entered their heart. Maybe it was the night the past finally left it. Maybe it was not the end of your story. Maybe it was the moment your soulmate finally decided that if there is going to be a future, it has to be built on truth. And maybe that future begins with one simple sentence. I need to tell you what really happened last night. When that moment comes, listen. Stay calm. Ask questions. And then watch what happens next. Because the truth is not only in what they tell you. The truth is in what they do after they tell you. And if their actions match their words, perhaps you will finally understand. Who were they with? Why did they hide it? What really happened? And most importantly, who did they choose when the night was over? Maybe they chose the past. Maybe they chose confusion. Maybe they chose you. Whatever the answer is, you will be strong enough to face it. You will be wise enough to choose. You will be strong enough to walk away if necessary. And you will be open enough to rebuild if the truth deserves another chance. So tonight, release the fear. Give the situation to God. Ask for clarity. And sleep knowing that you do not need to control tomorrow. Tomorrow will reveal itself. The truth will reveal itself. People will reveal themselves. And when everything becomes clear, you will know exactly what to do. Because sometimes the most shocking part of a story is not who someone was with, but why they were there. And sometimes, the person you thought was a threat was actually the final chapter of a story that needed to end. Maybe your soulmate was caught last night. But perhaps what they were really caught doing was finally letting go. Finally choosing. Finally understanding. Finally becoming honest. And maybe finally realizing that the person they don't want to lose is you. Let the next chapter prove it.